In this video, we will look at an application that you're all very familiar with, email. It stands for electronic mail. But first tell me, how many times in a day do you check your email? Well, I guess I don't have to convince you now how popular this application is. In fact, email was one of Internet's oldest application. It came into being sometime in 1971 when the foundation stones for Internet were being laid. Email provides an asynchronous mode of communication. By this I mean both sides don't have to be active at the same time. You send an email, the other person may not view it until much time later, and he may even reply many hours later after seeing it. Just so that you understand what asynchronous mode of communication is, can you think of an example of synchronous mode of communication? Right, telephone conversations. Compared to the postal system, email is extremely fast, it is very easy to use as well as inexpensive. And over the years, it has evolved to support many features. We can append variety of attachments, we can ask for delivery confirmation, we can send emails to large groups, we can employ spam filters to filter the email messages that we receive. Apart from the basic service which lets us send messages to others, email provides many other services. You can send carbon copies of the messages to others. You can send blind carbon copies where the recipients are hidden. You can assign a priority to your email. You can make it urgent. You can specify alternative recipients in case you couldn't get through to the main recipient. You can join mailing lists. You can store and manage emails via mailboxes. You can enable email forwarding where, for example, if you moved from company A to company B and you receive mails at this company's address, you can forward that mails to your ID at the company's B's address. You can apply filters to detect spam, to organize your messages in your mailbox. This is just a subset. There are plenty more. In order to enable email service, there are two basic components involved. One is the user agents. These are also called mail readers. These are basically the local programs that help people read, send and manage emails. These can be either text-based or graphical user interface-based. For example, Pine and Elm are text-based mail readers. I guess no one uses them now. Microsoft Outlook, Mozilla Thunderbird are GUI-based readers. You must be very familiar with these. The other component is the message transfer agent. These are the invisible hands that move your messages from your machine to the destination host. These are the processes that run in the background which implement the required protocols. These are often called mail daemons, not daemons. We will look at email specific protocols later, but first let's look at the email message format. How would you define the message format of the postal system? So in the postal system, you write a letter on a piece of paper. Let me call this message. So this will include the date, from, to, dear, subject, reference, blah, 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 yours sincerely, and then your signature. And then you're going to put this message in an envelope where on top of it, you specify the address of the destination recipient. There is not much difference in the email format as well. Even in email, there is an envelope that encapsulates the message. The envelope contains information needed to transport the message. For example, the destination address, the priority of the message, the security level. So basically, these message transfer agents use this envelope information to route messages to the correct destination. This is not explicitly mentioned but derived from the header fields that are part of the message. The message within the envelope itself contains a header and a body, the specifications of which are defined in this RFC 55322. Both the header and the body are represented in ASCII text. Header contains control information that is useful for the user agents, that is the mail readers, and the body of the message is for human consumption. And this header is separated from the body by a blank line. Many of these header fields you're already familiar with. So header contains a type and value separated by a colon. For example, from, to, date, subject, so on. And each of this header field ends with a carriage written line field. These are two ASCII characters. Let's quickly look at these fields. From refers to who is sending the message. To is the email's recipients, the current date. Each email message is identified by a unique ID. This is the message ID. Who are the carbon copy recipients? Who are the blind carbon copy recipients? Who is the sender? Well, if you are wondering, when there is from, why do you need a sender? A sender need not be the same as from. For example, the from could be the boss and the sender could be the secretary. The subject field specifies what the message is about. Received is an interesting field. It captures at the application layer. Let me emphasize, it's application layer, not the network layer, the path taken by this particular message. Basically, what all mail servers process this message. I will show an example of this shortly. Return path basically is redundant. It is supposed to capture the path that is supposed to be taken back to the sender of the message, which in fact is captured by the received field. Often this is just set equal to the sender address. Reply to captures who should the reply for this message go to. By the way, this need not correspond to the from or the sender. For example, if you are conveying information about a product, the reply to may refer to the sales manager. So that's with the header. The body in the initial days was made of plain English text, which was expressed in ASCII. There was no support for foreign languages. There was no support for non-text attachments like PDF, doc, JPEG, audio files, so on. But then over the years, there was felt a strong need for supporting both. But then these message transfer agents didn't know how to handle non-ASCII text. So to get around it, this MIME extensions were provided. MIME stands for Multipurpose Internet Mail Extensions. Basically, a whole bunch of additional headers were added, the content types and subtypes were defined, and overall a certain structure was assigned to the message body, and some encoding rules for converting non-ASCII messages to ASCII were also specified. A point to note is, to this day, email is ASCII based. Rather inefficient. If you have an attachment, you have to convert it into ASCII text before you can send it in your email. But all this is handled by the user agents. So here are the headers added by MIME. So first there is the MIME version, which identifies the version of the MIME that you're using. Content description is an ASCII string that tells what is in the message. For example, if it's a picture of your favorite cricketer, you may say Sachin rules as content description. Content ID is again a unique identifier associated with that particular content, and content type specifies the type of data contained in the message. There are a variety of content types as shown here. Text plain is unformatted text, text enriched is simple formatted text, image JPEG refers to a JPEG image, video MPEG application MS Word. Message mixed means the message is made up of independent pieces where each piece has its own header lines, like here. Content transfer encoding specify how the data in the message has been encoded into ASCII, either using 7-bit encoding or base 64 encoding. These are two popular encoding types. Nothing like an example. Let's look at an email message. So I have pulled up my Thunderbird mail reader and I am highlighting this particular email which I have sent to myself as well as kameshwari@gmail.com. So this email has 3 attachments as shown here, a PDF, a JPEG and a docx. The mail reader displays only a few of the header fields, for example the from, subject, to as well as the date. If you want to look at the entire message, you need to say view source. So here is the entire message, lot of header fields. Let's start here. So there is a message ID that uniquely identifies this particular message. This is useful when you want the mail reader to sort messages according to threads. And then there is a date that specifies when this message was received, from whom, what was the agent, which is basically the Thunderbird, which MIME version, who is the destination address, what is the subject line, and here is the MIME portion which specifies the content type is multi-part mixed because there are multiple attachments, and it also specifies a boundary that separates the different attachments. Then start the different parts of the messages separated by these boundaries. So the first part is the plain text, which is shown here. The transfer encoding that was employed was 7-bit, and this is that particular plain text. Following this is the PDF content type, and it specifies the name, and the encoding that was used here is base 64. Content disposition is also a MIME header that specifies whether this attachment should be displayed inline or shown as an attachment. Since this is shown as an attachment, it specifies it as an attachment, and it also specifies what the file name is. After this follows the PDF content that is being encoded using base 64 into ASCII. As I mentioned, email deals only with ASCII. This thing goes on for quite some time. Here is the JPEG portion, very similar to before. This also uses base 64 encoding. As you can see, this is also in ASCII. Here is the docx attachment. The content type is a long string. This also employs base 64. Let's go back up again. So here in the received field, it traces the path taken by this particular message. This IP address is my host's IP address. So this message was received from this by smtp-auth.iitb.ac.in, and in turn this was passed on to ldns1.iitb.ac.in, and at this point it was realized that this message is to CSE department, so it was passed on to jeeves.csc.iitb.ac.in, which is our mail server, and from here it was delivered to chebrolu@csc.iitb.ac.in. And here the return path is specified as my email ID address. I don't know why these two received fields are arising. I think internally it's trying to do something. So our mail server also employs a spam filter. That particular information is captured by these particular headers. So that's with respect to the message format.